So it's been a while since I've taken Algebra 1. Can you give me some additional tips on these linear functions? I'm glad you asked. It's your girl Tiffany with Tiffany's Tutoring and Consulting, LLC, guiding you through these education streets, the SAT edition. So this is part two. This will be the last of the third video that I've done on linear functions or linear equations in the SAT. So we got two more problems for y'all. Let's make it good. Number 15. And again, this is still test four. Again, I'm trying to stay consistent so that you can have kind of a breakdown of a lot of questions on one test. Line T in the XY plane has a slope of negative one third and passes through the point 910. What equation defines line T? Now, again, the Desmos calculator is built in. So you can put all of these into the Desmos calculator and then back your way into the answer to see if it goes through the point 910 and if it has a slope of negative one third. But going back to our Algebra 1 days, you have point slope, which is another form of the line that you can use. Now, this is not given on the formula sheet, but again, it's something that you can commit to memory for the SAT. Y1, X1, or X1, Y1, I'm sorry, represents the point. M represents the slope. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and annotate this and plug in my answers. This is the slope here. So I'm going to say Y minus, and it's going to be 10 equals negative one third x minus 9. Okay. And then since this is in slope intercept form, I'm just going to go ahead and first distribute the negative one third. Going to do it here. Again, make sure you're very careful with your negatives. It's going to be positive 3. And that's because, again, 9 times one third, that's going to be 9 over 3. It's going to give me 3. And it's going to be positive because negative times negative is a positive. Then I'm going to add 10 to both sides. And I have y equals 1 negative one third. See, don't forget, like I almost forgot there. Don't forget to bring down your negative. Negative one third x plus 13. Now you might be like, there is not that answer there. I'm glad you asked, but there is. Okay, because again, remember, I'm multiplying those two. So if I'm multiplying those, and that's going to be x over 1, and that's going to be negative x over 3 plus 13. Okay, and then that's going to give you the answer of D. Okay. Another idea is if you want to on your scrap paper, you can actually make a coordinate plane, like a little bootleg version of it, and try to get as close as you can to, let's say, your point 910. Let's say it's here. Then you can go down one to the right three, down one to the right three, and kind of do your slope there. But you got to be really careful with that because then you have to kind of go backwards to go ahead and get to your y-intercept. But that's another way you can do it on your scrap paper. But that's my least favorite method. I think my most favorite is for you to put it into point slope form, or either for you to put the answers in Desmos. All right, now this one looks crazy, right? In the given equation, P is a constant. The equation has no solution. What is the value of P? Now you might be like, there's no way. So the SAT math portion is definitely heavy on conceptual learning, or what you've learned conceptually about different problems. That's not a lot of plug and chug. You have more time, but you have to kind of understand concepts. So if I know that an equation has no solutions, that means that it's going to be something like this: 5 equals 8, or negative 6 equals 7. So what would eventually happen is my final answer. That is going to be what I have when I'm talking about no solution of my equations. So my coefficients and my variables are going to have to be eliminated in order for it to be either infinitely many or either no solution. But this time we want no solution. So what that means is that in order for me to have no solution, I'm going to rewrite it down here. That means that 3x has got to be eliminated. And we talked about additive inverses in our first video with systems. So what we want to look for is this case where 21px equals positive 3x. Because if I have negative 3x plus positive 3x, that's going to cancel out to or end up equaling 0. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for, is I want it to equal 0. So I'm going to set those two equal to each other. And then I'm just going to solve algebraically for P. Okay. So let's go ahead and do that. So first thing I want to do is figure out, what do I want to move? I'm glad you asked what I should move. I need to move the 21 and P and X. These are all kind of stuck together, right? So this is multiplication. 21 is a coefficient of px, and then x and p are still being multiplied. So I'm going to move them. Now I could move them together, but just for purposes of those who might need a little more scaffolding, I'm going to divide both sides by x first. Again, the inverse of multiplication is division. That's going to give me 21p equals 3. X divided by x is 1. And then 1 times 3 is 3. Okay. My last step, again, I'm going to do division again. Now, don't get calculator happy because your answers are in fractions, okay? So you can make this a decimal, but then you might have to go back and convert and figure out the decimal that actually matches. So you want to make sure that you definitely keep it as a fraction, 3 over 21. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify my fraction. And again, I'm looking for a common factor between 21 and 3. 3 is obviously my best choice. I'm going to divide both by 3, and I get p equals 1 over 7. So my answer is B. So again, these were pretty straightforward if you remember the concept. So if you haven't taken Algebra 1 in a while, you might want to bone up on some of the concepts, especially all the different forms of a linear function and equation. All right, hopefully this helps. If you have any suggestions, put them down in the comments. Hopefully I'll see you next time where I'll get into some other things like quadratics and statistics and some geometry in the SAT math. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.